Let's watch this experiment closely. First, I'm going to start by just filling this cup with warm water. Now I'm going to take 1 spoonful of sugar and add it to the water. With the spoon, I'm then going to stir the sugar into the water. Watch what happens. Let's take a minute to think and reflect. What did you notice happening in this experiment? Let's rewind this and watch one more time. Now this time we're going to think a little deeper. We know that the sugar is staying in the water because after this experiment, if you were to taste the water, it would taste sweet. So this time, as you watch, think about, where does the sugar go in the water? And why can't you see it after it dissolves? Here it is again. We add the sugar, and then after we stir it, you cannot see it anymore. Let's stop for an experiment check. Where do you think the sugar goes? Why can't you see it after it dissolves? Now would be a good time to pause the video and discuss. Ready to find out? Well, to understand this, we need to look a little more closely at the water and the sugar. If you took your spoonful of sugar and zoomed in, at first you would see a bunch of grains of sugar. You can see these with your eyes if you look really closely. But if you were to zoom in even further on just a single grain of sugar, far smaller than what your eye can see, you would see that a sugar grain is made up of tiny, tiny particles of sugar. And it's not just sugar, it's water too. If you zoomed in on this water, at first you would just see more water. But if you kept zooming, eventually you would find that water too is made of tiny little particles. Well, what is a particle? Particles are tiny objects that are too small to see with your eyes. Everything around us is made of particles, even if it doesn't look like it. Water is made of particles, sugar is made of particles, even you and I are made of tiny particles, too small to see. Let's stop for a science check. My friend and I went to the beach, and she picked up a handful of sand. She said, "Look, you can see each grain of sand. A grain of sand is the smallest piece of sand there is." Do you agree with your friend? Is a grain of sand the smallest possible piece of sand? Now would be a good time to pause the video and discuss. So how does understanding particles help us explain dissolving sugar in water? Well, if we start thinking about the experiment in a new way, it might help. Instead of thinking of just adding water to a cup, let's think that we have a lot of particles of water in our cup. And instead of thinking of just adding some grains of sugar to our water, let's think that we're adding together many, many, many particles of sugar. Now what you can start to see happen is as soon as that sugar hits the water, it breaks into individual particles. Then, when I take my spoon and start stirring it, those particles spread around. Instead of just being on the bottom of the cup, they spread so that they're throughout all of the water. Notice that the sugar particles are now just filling up the empty spaces between each of the water particles. So where does the sugar go? Well, when you add it to water, first the sugar grains break into individual particles. Then those sugar particles move into the empty spaces between water particles. After this, you don't see the sugar anymore because particles are too small to see. You can't see the sugar particles in the water. Let's stop for another science check. Sugar dissolves because both sugar and water are made of. After it dissolves, you cannot see the sugar because. That's all for now. Stay tuned for next time.